Morning came and turned into day, such that it was during nuclear winter. Then another night swept over the Florida Keys, followed by another day of the grayish haze that blanketed the planet. The tumultuous waves and the torrential rains had ceased, bringing an eerie calm over the water. When it was over, Jimmy Free thought he had died. It's not uncommon for the living who discover an unconscious body to act with trepidation. They might kick it to see if it stirs. Others might slap the person's face, trying to evoke a reaction. Or, as Sonny Free suggested when Peter's lifeless body was found in a heap on the bridge leading to Driftwood Key, one could simply shoot the poor soul and see if he responded. It was a surface-feeding fish nibbling at Jimmy's toes that reminded him he was alive. But just barely. Dehydrated, exhausted, and disoriented, Jimmy had wrapped his arms around a palm tree log. He tried without success to determine his location. From recollection, he thought he was within the confines of Blackwater Sound. He vividly remembered the pounding waves and the hurricane-force winds that had battered him relentlessly for hours. Once he lost control of his wave runner and began to tread water, he was certain Peter would find him, if not immediately when daylight came. For hours, he was pushed farther and farther west as the storm raged on. One wave after another generated momentum, forcing his body, along with the other flotsam, to move away from Key Largo and toward the western side of Blackwater Sound. It was a stroke of bad luck that sent Jimmy floating helplessly through the boggies, a narrow channel that split the mangroves and entered Florida Bay. 30 feet to either the left or the right would have landed him against the mangrove trees jutting through the water. He would have held on through the hurricane, and when the devilish storm passed, he could have used the mangroves to pull himself back to Key Largo. At worst, he would have been found by Peter or the other boaters during their search the next day. However, fate brought him into the open waters of Florida Bay, where he drifted with the waves generated by the hurricane. A palm tree's trunk had rammed into him as he floated along. It was his only option to be used as a flotation device. Despite the heavy nature of the waterlogged tree trunk, it kept him afloat and alive through the tempest. When the log crashed into a beach, Jimmy inwardly rejoiced. He was going to live. He convinced himself he was within Blackwater Sound. He was wrong. Exhausted from the ride through the storm, he lay flat on his back on the sandy shore and passed out. Then he slept for 14 hours. When he awakened, he unknowingly found himself on Derelict Key, a tiny island disconnected from the mainland, which was approximately 4 miles from the boggies. The storm had passed, allowing him to take in his immediate surroundings, but the hazy nature of nuclear winter had reduced his visibility to only a couple of miles. For as far as his eyes could see, there was only grayish water and the similarly colored skies above. Other than the salt-filled rainwater he'd lapped up off his skin during the storm, Jimmy hadn't had anything to drink since he'd been held at the infield care center at the Speedway. It had now been more than 48 hours, and his body was feeling the effects of dehydration. Between the onset of dehydration and the battle he'd fought during the hurricane, Jimmy was extremely fatigued. He was starting to feel dizzy and unable to pee. As he sat on the beach staring across the water, he cupped his hand and held it to his mouth. His breath was horrible. He started to laugh hysterically as he debated what luxury item he'd enjoy more, a swig of Scope mouthwash or a cherry popsicle. It's been said that the grandest of adventures were often imagined on an uncharted island. From visions of pirates' booty to giant apes, the mysterious nature of a tiny speck of land peeking up through a vast ocean has captivated the imagination of children and adults who seek solace from the so-called rat race. The Florida Keys were able to fulfill some of these visions. Since they were discovered by Ponce de Leon in 1513, legions of ships caught the trade winds along the Florida Straits to explore the Americas. Pirates sailed the waters, stalking the Spanish treasure fleets. British warships tracked the illegal slave ships. Hidden coral reefs held their bony hands near the surface, causing many of the boats to wreck. Derelict Key was too small for pirate treasure or giant apes. The foot-shaped island was less than a mile from ankle to toe. Jimmy wandered the entire perimeter of the island, assessing his options. He knew there was another island or landmass nearby, as evidenced by the iguanas that inhabited Derelict Key.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it. at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.